Hi, I'm Anna.
I'm Ben.
AutoSave, welcome to our
Today
channel.
we're watching Owarimonogatari Shinobu Mail Part 6. Last episode was incredible. It was one of my favorite episodes of Owarimonogatari, and specifically in reference to Kambaru, one of my favorite Kambaru moments of the entire series of Monogatari.
I'm really thankful that we took the time, specifically Ononoki made sure to kind of pull Araragi aside so that we, the viewer, and Araragi could actually hear this conversation between Kambaru and Shinobu. I'm really thankful for it, and I think Shinobu is actually probably thankful for this conversation, even though she needed to go kind of get some time by herself after this conversation.
Yeah.
And now we also have a really great motto to be kind of going into the next episode living by, and that is DIY.
Yeah, yeah, do it yourself.
Do it yourself.
That was what was intended.
That was what was intended, and that is how we're moving forward.
Yep.
We even have kind of the battlefield picked out. Everything is ready.
Let's see it.
Are we ready?
You ready?
Yes.
Sweet. I'm so excited.
どうしたの？この度のトラブルはもう解決したの？
まだ終わってない。我慢しきれなかった。心細くって。
そう。まあ、羽川さんのことはこちらに任せておいて。
We know you will.
羽川に何かあったのか？
ガンバルから聞いていない？
何を？
聞いていないのなら、帰ってきてから本人から直接聞き。
This is awesome actually seeing.
なあ、戦場ヶ原、一個教えてほしいことがあるんだけれど、ガンバルが直江津高校に入学してきて、お前に会いに来た時、正直なところどう思った？
正直重いって思ったわね。
Oh,
あの子の気持
this
ち。
is so good.
けれどそ
The
れは
idea of what
あの子の
Shinobu's
元に耐えきれ
perspective.
ない軽さの表れでもあったでしょうね。
It's too shallow.
私がカンバルと一緒にいたいのであれば、その重さに耐えられる自分でなきゃ、そう思いながら研鑽中よ。努力しているのよ。荒木くんのお嫁さんになるために。
いえ、決してそういうわけでは。
You weren't good enough then, but trying to be good enough for the person you currently have.
お前が怒るかもしれないことを聞いていいか？剣のいいやつがお前に告白してきたら、その時どうする？
その時は 100% 乗り換えると思う。
すげえな、お前。それが言えるってすげえな。
絆に絶対なんてないことを私は知っている。両親を見て学んでいる。
Oh.
絶対的な絆なんて考えてみたら結構怖いしね。乗り換えられないよう努力しなさいという話。
Encouragement to work on yourself.
人間にはなれなくとも誰かの特別にはなれるでしょ。
But you can be special in the eyes of someone else.
誰かの特別。
特別な人間であろうと絶え間なく努力。
View and Kanbaru.
安心しなさい、荒木くん。十分特別な人間よ。私にとっても、カンバルにとっても。
I would agree with that.
ちゃんにとっても。
Yep.
Yep.
私たちはあなたを選んで。
本当に理解していたのか。すげえな。
Yeah, she did. It's her job.
I'm also happy that you called her.
帰ったらもうちょっと。もっとこういう話をしよう。
え、裸で待ってるわ。
カンバルの変態って。お前の強いよな。
Oh.
What, isn't that the highest form of flattery? Like a mimicry?
That was great. That was so good.
I didn't think to myself, oh, I want him to call Senjigahara, but like now I'm so happy for it. I'm so incredibly happy for it. And using the reasons for calling her to be kind of focused in on that idea of Kanbaru being able to relate to the first Oddity Slayer.
Yep.
But why exactly would Kanbaru feel like she could? Senjigahara is a part of that picture.
Mm-hmm. I also, they took it a step further that I didn't expect, which was Senjigahara's parents being referenced and the idea of no absolutes in human relationships.
Unconditional love.
Yeah. Oh, we're suited up. Oh my god. Oh my god!
With the footprint. Thought we needed to get it removed.
There we go. Hope it peels off like a sticker. Damn, it's that easy?
Seeing him in the suit of armor form again.
どうやら拙者が心配していたほどに人との絆は強くないようでござる。今まで戦場に送り出すなど信じられぬ。忍の力で勝ちたいんじゃない。
Do it yourself.
忍の力になりたいのだ。
But what about her feelings?
まあよかろう。こうなるとちゃんとハンディキャッピングをした上での決闘法を設けてほしい。言い訳はごめんじゃ。
もちろん
Wow.
方法を採用するつもり
Kendo?
だ。それなりに君たちが公平に仮想妖刀心当たりといったところで
Virtual
Whoa.
もち
version.
ろん霊気を通してある。まあ互いに有効なスタンガンみたい。まずは君たちにはこの市内を挟んで合わせに立ってもらう。そこから10歩前方に向かって歩く。1歩目を最後にバトル開始だ。
Still looks like a clock.
前に駆け寄って相手に一たち浴びせた方の勝ち。あくまでも勝負の基準は一たち勝負だ。
要するに今日を公平にするというより荒らぎ殿が決闘で死なないようにするためのよく考えるものでござる。
剣も戦いも素人なんで、せめてその10歩分の欄について教えを受けてもいいですか？
専門家。オッケー。
Who else?
2班では追加してもいいだろう。じゃあ今が7時半だから8時ジャストに決闘開始だ。
30 minutes. Okay, Kambaru.
Best teacher
ウォーミング
ever.
アップに励んでくれたまえ。
マラソンにはマラソンの戦略が、100メートル走には100メートル走の戦略の残し方が課題かもしれない。
課題って？
で、それで終わりではないということだ。人たち入れなければいけないのだろう。
ああ、そっか。
No warm up
重要なのは
necessary.
結局、市内を取った後のチャンバラの方だ。一撃をかわされ、市内を奪われ、せっかくの努力も水の泡だろう。
そうだが、それはなるようになるとしか言えないだろう。ここまでお前を煩わすわけにはいかない。
で、私のシューズを貸そうか。サイズは同じだろう。
Oh, well, thank goodness. I was about to say, if we're not the same size, we're like the shirts we're
We're just
swapping,
dressing
we're
up
swapping
as
shit- exactly.
Kambaru.
何これ？僕がしばらく学校に来
A
た。
shower.
何があったんだ？お前何か知っているか？
いや、私にはさっぱりわか家が火事になって焼け出された羽川先輩がカレンちゃんや月日ちゃんを頼る形で荒木先輩の家に滞在して。
多分それ正解だろう。って火事？焼け出された？それ。
おやおや
Don't worry about it right now.
佳境のようだね。どうする小読み？
いずこさん、何か知っているんですか？そもそも羽川を知っているんですか？それに
Headed
どう
towards
するって？
climax.
何を？
私は何でも知っている。ほらだよ小読み。君を学習塾後で皮肉にも救ったって。
Ironically saved you in the cram school.
司るその大虎と翼ちゃんは向き合う決心。
This is so good.
君の彼女の戦場ヶ原さんも同じくピンチだ。
何？
彼女たちは燃え盛っているかもしれない。一刻も早く今すぐにでも行った方がいい。やる意味のない決闘を放棄してね。君が決闘してくれない方が
Guyan, what are you doing?
身に死なれたら困るからね。からルールを破るわけにはいかないから、君が自らルールを破って。小読みも良かったじゃないか。どう取りやめる絶好の理由ができて。
Does he really stop and just go to her, and then what, Shinobu takes his place in the duel?
ためにこのままここに留まるのか、翼ちゃんと戦場ヶ原さんを助けるために走り出す。翼ちゃんを選ぶのか、戦場ヶ原さんを選ぶのかの中で誰が一番好きなんだい？
カンバル、頼む。
頼まれた。荒木先輩の家に行けばいいんだな。
ああ、すぐに追いつくから。先に調べておいてほしい。
一切承知。
本当に目の前のことしか見えないのかい？ここで戦えるのは君だけなんだから、取るのは正しいかもしれない。
Might
だけどそんなのは理屈だ。人には感情がある。彼女はメールを送ってきてくれたんじゃない。
people have feelings she might be able to do it on her own.
君は二度と彼女たちから信用してもらえなくなる。
そうかもしれない。だけど、
But I should trust them. Oh my god, Araragi.
戦場ヶ原のこと、心から
Me
信じて。
too.
恩人や恋人よりも、時に幼女を優先する男だと分かってくれると信じている。
We know that very well.
丸ごと預けられるような感触で。
超ウケる。奴隷同士の争いに主人として道具。この場合は景品か？た方が妖刀を授与されるとか。よ。
いずれにしても私がせっかく用意した市内は
Oh boy.
本物を使うしかない。
Oh
Trying to make
boy.
it so Araragi doesn't die.
始めてもらおうか。予定通り、間に背中合わせになっておくれ。
どうして我らが主キスショットは姿を見せる。そんなにキスショットは拙者に会いたくないのかな。キスショットにとっては心底迷惑なだけなのかな。お主にとっては荒木殿、この決闘はどういう意味を持つ。
僕にとっての意味は
You wouldn't understand what it means to me.
選ばれた人間なのかもしれない。選ばれてないかもしれない。お前の代わりは誰にもできなくて誰にでもできるのかもしれない。だけどな、
In Kanbaru's shoes, I love it.
お前は僕にはなれないよ。いくらでもいるけれど、僕は僕しかいないから。お前は僕じゃないし、僕はお前じゃない。そういうことだろう。
No.
1、2、3、7、
The bite marks.
9、10。
Oh.
Out of the armor. And he dressed for this duel. They were supposed to fit.
Oh.
めめの、ああ、そういうことか。驚いた。これは本当に
Count me surprised.
What?
人たち浴びせたら勝ちという私の設定したルールを
I mean,
人たち浴びせたら勝ちだとき。
キスショット。キスショット。
僕が一体何歳まで生きられるのかわかんないけど、また会えたら、また会えたら、また会おう。
then let us meet.
謝らんでもよい。許した。
I have chills.
Oh my god.
静止ろ。
Seishiro? Wow.
って嬉しかった。会えないと思ってたから。だけどもう会わない。船より大事なものがおる。今しばらくはそやつのためのわしでいたい。
さっぱりせず、気持ちよくもなく、はっきり言ってくれた方が
Finally
かえって楽にもならず、
successful.
実行から400年の時を経て、彼の自殺はようやく成功したのだった。
Oh my god.
それからどうなったんですか、荒木先輩。今回のうちは。
その後はもう前に話したとおり
Yeah, it
Look at his
was.
で
hair.
僕の家に向かってくれたカンバルと合流して、羽川の元に向かい、カンバルは戦場ヶ原の元へと。
そうですかそうですか。いや、ありがとうございました。これでパズルのピースがすべて埋まりましたよ。これまで聞いていた話と若干細部が矛盾する箇所もありますけれど、実も合わせもあらゆる物語の聞き手こと、母子の扇の楽しみでもあります。今日はもう帰りますね。またお会いしましょう。
Meeting
If
again.
we're still alive.
忍さんは一人目の眷属を結局のところ食べきったんですか。
それはそう言ったろ。
食べ残しなく。甲冑も。
食べたと思う。
I saw the armor. I don't think she ate it.
けれど、何か重要なのかい。
だってその鎧もまた血肉であり骨身でしょ。その鎧をドロドロに溶かして、そしてその上で手振り作れるかもしれないじゃないですか。妖刀心当たりがあわよくば小立ち夢渡りも。
夢渡り。
忍さんに食べられてしまう前に鎧は回収するでしょう。
If Gaia knows everything, did she do something with the armor?
そのために呼ばれたのかもしれません。
Oh.
ガエンさんがそんなことをする理由がないだろう。
I think it's just to see doubt, right?
甲冑も忍が食べたんだと思うぜ。
You think?
確かそうだった気がする。
私の方からも一つだけお答えしておきましょう。
僕の疑問って何？
獅子類聖四郎。それが初代怪異殺しのフルネームです。荒木先輩もやっぱり恋敵の名前は記しておきたいでしょ。 話は偶然聞かせてもらったよ。
またか。
So cute.
北白蛇神社に行くつもりなんだけど、一緒にどう？
どこだいそれ。
忘れてんじゃねえよ。行方不明になった場所だよ。
お兄ちゃん、吸血鬼になって幸せ。見殺しがそんなことを言っていたじゃない。ちゃんが忍先生と共にあることで、俺にどんないいことがあるのか。彼にとってのメリットを提示することはできなかったわけだけれども、その気持ちは今でも変わらない。誰も幸せになっていないと、今も思ってる。
今も思ってる。誰も幸せにならないし、誰も幸せになれない。僕が忍と一緒にいることで、みんなに迷惑しかかけられない。忍を不幸にしてしまっている。
言い訳のようにも聞こえるけれどね。幸せになろうとなんかしないから、許してください。責めるなよ。かわいそうだろって主張しているようにも、不幸や不遇に甘んじてことを頑張ってると思っちゃってるんじゃないの。
Good question.
I love you,
そうい
Ononoki.
うのを世間では
Apathy.
何もしていないって言うんだよ。不幸なくらいで許されると思うな。ハッピーエンドを目指すべきだ。
厳しいな、おののきちゃんは。
Good.
不幸で居続けることは怠慢だし、幸せになろうとしないことは卑怯だよ。そんなんじゃ
That
自殺した先駆者も報われまい。
聞いておくよ。誰も幸せになっていない。僕も忍も誰一人。ひょっとしたら今よりずっと先、例えば400年後とかにはその考え方少しは変わっているかもしれないと、そんなことを思いながら、幸せではなくとも幸いなことに時間はまだまだ腐るほどある。考える時間も生きる時間もうんざりするほど死体が腐って灰になるくらい
the dust.
僕たちにはあるのだ。そんな時間がなくなるのも。
How do you think Oikura's doing?
Were you thinking of her because
Yeah.
of the happiness
Yeah.
lines? I literally wrote it down. I wrote down Oikura.
Transparently, what I've been going through recently, a lot this episode hit me, like towards the end.
Really?
Yeah.
Is just wallowing in the misfortune. Is that something that you would then call toughing it out? I really want to go back and look at that line again.
Yeah. I have too many favorite characters in the series.
It's one of those series, it's very hard to not have this kind of list that then kind of changes and different characters move around.
They just all have so many opportunistic times to shine.
Right?
Okay, that was Owarimonogatari, Shinobu Mail, Part 6. I believe that was the end of Shinobu Mail, or at least it seemed like it, especially because of the conclusion of this episode.
I feel like how we ended off this episode definitely made me feel like I'm in a place where I'm like, wait, what am I wanting to talk about now? Because we had one thing and I thought, oh, this is how we're going to be ending this episode off and this is what I'm thinking about, and then it turned into something else literally 30 seconds to 50 seconds later, and then another thing.
Yeah.
Like I go from being like, oh, I want to talk about or think about, oh, where we were at in terms of what Hanakawa was going through by the end of the episode, and then I go, what is Ogi saying? And then I go, oh, Ononoki, you know?
Yeah, I get you completely. And like, for its own arc in Shinobu Mail, it makes perfect sense, right? Like starting off, like having, like telling the story in the way that we are makes sense. And then the idea of it playing out the way that it does, just to have Ogi back here talking with us again. And then the Ononoki conversation happening. Like, I love it so much, but then I have so many questions of like, what happened within the episode, my interpretations of a couple of different things, and then where are we going next?
It's almost like we're put in terms of like our interpretations of certain things that we were supposed to be seeing within this episode. Once Ogi is introduced at the end of the episode, I feel like we are in a similar place to Araragi with some of the kind of ideas or questioning that she's putting forward. I think you would use the word the seeds of doubt kind of, that she was putting maybe into Araragi's mind in terms of what are other people's intentions. Have they thought of this? What are they doing currently? Have you thought of this? And then we, the viewer, are in a similar place to Araragi.
I'm conflicted because if it was anybody else but Ogi, the idea and the information that she was giving to us about the armor and the idea of why episode is really there and it could be reforged into Dreamspan, like that could give me doubt. That could give me like uncertainty of what plans are, what ideas are, or, you know, what Gaian is like directing us towards, but it is from Ogi. And that makes me pause, and that gives me pause.
Is that
and
untrustability?
I don't know. In terms of watching Monogatari, and ever since Ogi's introduction into the series, I feel like the evidence is stacked up in terms of Aragi's perspectives and the examples that Ogi's giving and the hypotheticals that Ogi's giving in terms of that scale or balance of the way that life should be, put into place and into practice is always been a question to me. And on both sides of those scales are Ogi, and then Gaian would be on the other. And I have bias because I love Gaian, and I do have faith and trust in her more so than Ogi. However, this episode makes me think that I think that I might be on the wrong track for Ogi, and I think it's like if Ogi was somehow in Araragi's mind, or created from Araragi, or an oddity created from Araragi, in the sense that she knows certain things that happen in Araragi's past, and that gives the information she has to do what she does and say what she does and direct life however she chooses to for her own benefit or her opinion. That's fine and all until she knows Shishiro Seshiro. Apologies if I pronounced that wrong. The idea of, like, Araragi doesn't know that name in any regard. The full name at least, right? Because we get Shinobu saying part of his name.
Which might have been Aragi's first and only time, because it was
ever
our first time really kind of hearing it be said by Shinobu.
So the fact that Ogi thinks that would then make me think that she was more akin to the darkness, right? Like to the mass. Because if we're putting it in our faces again, like we did in Shinobu time, like who else was around there? Who else was existing during that time and would know of the Oddity Slayer in that moment in time by his full name? If it is a physical embodiment of that darkness, I could see it being Ogi at this point.
Especially, I like the idea of you kind of putting Gaian and Ogi on these kind of opposite sides of this scale. I mean, I think too what Ogi is possibly alluding to in terms of putting these seeds of doubt of like, are you sure that you saw Shinobu eat the armor? In fact, if someone were to want those pieces of armor, do you know what they could do with it? And that definitely feeds into things we know about Gaian in terms of what sort of control she wants to have, the sort of kind of relationship she wants to have with oddities and what she views her job in the world is. And so it would make a lot of sense if, for part of that kind of control aspect, she wouldn't want to leave it all maybe to Shinobu eating all of the first Oddity Slayer, and in fact would want to gather the pieces of armor herself, and maybe wouldn't have wanted Araragi or Shinobu to think on the armor too much and think they just the living in the kind of place they are at the end of the duel is that while not given any salvation, this was successful.
Yeah.
And so if we're gonna let Shinobu and Araragi have that kind of frame of mind as Gaian, maybe that fits a certain motive that Gaian has. Have them believe something so that they aren't looking in this direction. Are we trying to paint Gaian as someone that we should possibly be not totally trusting in terms of her motives?
I think that was my initial takeaway, and I think if it was from anybody else but Ogi, I would feel more confident in putting Gaian into that category, and I definitely could be wrong in saying that, right? But it's Gaian.
Right, it's just, I think that when you boil it down, even if we want to put Gaian in this place of, well, she's probably has good intentions at heart, we obviously know that Araragi has his own way of doing things, his own way that he feels about things that probably would differ from quite a bit of other people in terms of who he would want to save, how many people he'd want to save, and how much he'd put himself out in order to do that. And that might go against what someone else kind of wants, or what the greater good kind of idea would even be. And so there is places for Araragi and Gaian to not agree on how to go about something.
I agree with that.
Which doesn't make her like a villain character.
But it would give evidence, like, okay, it doesn't make her a villain character, but it gives enough ammunition to a character like Ogi to be able to use that lack of information that Araragi might have been communicated with, that being, what the armor could be used for right now, to seed, like, some doubt within Araragi's view of Gaian.
Like, how would you feel if you were Araragi in this place where you were trying to do it yourself, you were trying to make sure that you were in charge of all of the cards and handling things for the people that you care about and having your own kind of opinions put forward, your own feelings on things put forward, and handling them yourself. If you were then to find out that there were things that kind of slipped underneath your radar that you didn't feel like you were in fact in control of, or you didn't even consider, you would definitely not feel super good if you're Araragi, especially if he's wanting to handle things himself and go about it how he wants to go about it.
Yeah. Man, I don't know where to go from here. Okay, here's just one thing, or two things that are kind of like small potatoes in terms of the episode, because there's a lot to talk about and actually what we got to see that wasn't the end part, but these two kind of lie in that. One of which is Ogi talking about inconsistencies with the story. My mind immediately goes like to like the meta side of it in terms of like what we saw in Monogatari second season versus what we saw play out here and any differences there. And immediately I don't think of any that are crazy at all, really, to be honest. And my mind immediately goes to like, okay, we have two different narrators for each story, so of course there are going to be differences. But I wish we still had Monogatari second season downloaded on the computer so we could see if Araragi was wearing Kanbaru's shoe and jacket.
Oh, the one shoe and the jacket itself was shredded?
Yeah, like that would be the only thing I could think of. But granted, it's been a little bit since we've seen second season.
I know. I was thinking of that during the moment that we get him actually realizing what's going on with Hanakawa and therefore giving the viewer an idea timeline-wise where this night of this duel is actually matching up with Hanakawa's story. In my head, I was like, obviously I have a really great imagination, so in my brain I can imagine that this is in fact the exact outfit he was wearing when he walked up to Hanakawa, but I can't say that it's for sure because I can't trust myself with that for sure.
Yeah. I think that the order that we have watched things in is so fascinating in terms of like thematic storytelling being far apart. Usually in the way that conventional storytelling handles themes, you're dropping them in a chronological enough order that it's easy for anybody who is watching it week to week even to be able to bridge themes and bridge ideas of what, you know, how to handle a relationship and the tough parts of that and the connections between Senjukahara and Kanbaru or Senjukahara and her parents and the idea of like what happens at the end of Tsubasa Tiger. Like I was thinking coming into this episode or next episode, whenever Shinobu Mail ends, that we might, after everything's said and done, get a text or get intel that, you know, Hanakawa is in trouble or she's doing what she's doing, and that sends us our way. But the fact that we got it when we did, that led to us sending Kanbaru off to then go to Hanakawa's house, to then go to Aragi's house, and then to go to Senjukahara's house for intel and information, like, it redefines like the paradigm of my perspective of what's going on. Like and I think I'm apologies if I'm doing it a disservice, but the idea of like of Araragi handling what Hanakawa has to say to him at the end of Tsubasa Tiger in terms of like those feelings, that happening right after Araragi is having this interaction with, you know, Shishiro Seshiro, and Kanbaru is handling the emotions that she's been through with Senjukahara and telling Shinobu like her feelings and how she thinks she should handle this. All of that and how it influences Araragi's decision making and how he responds to Hanakawa is something so fascinating because
so good to bring up.
I'm trying to recontextualize it because at the moment I'm like, damn, Araragi. But now looking back, there's so much that led him there that I wasn't aware of that has been built up from Bakemonogatari the second we met Senjukahara. It's connected back from her parents and then goes up and then back 400 years ago to Shinobu's feelings to back with Kanbaru's. And like it's so gradual, but in a non-chronological order that it's extraordinary.
I love that you're bringing up what has informed Araragi to be who he is when he comes in at the very end of Tsubasa Tiger. We have obviously a Guyan kind of telling him, or Kambaru, we have the reveal of information happening at the moment right before the duel, and it's like, well, this is a great moment to be telling him what's going on with the people that he really cares about when he's about to do something for someone else that he really cares about. There's a lot of tension here, and Guyan has a line like, people have feelings. Also the idea of like Hanakawa might be able to handle things on her own, and to kind of you bringing up this perspective of, well, what else has Araragi done in this episode that can inform him to be whatever he needed to be for Hanakawa. Not even what he needed to be, but what he needed to say and how he needed to kind of respond and answer to those people have feelings kind of idea from Guyan. And he has the phone call with Senjigahara within this episode, and not only that, but he has what he sees Shinobu end up doing with the kind of end of the first Oddity Slayer within this duel. And of course, with that comes having all of the backstory, having Senjigahara's backstory, her parents, their love story and falling out of their love story. He has Shinobu's past and her story. He's able to kind of grab onto these things. He's able to remember back to Kambaru's point of view, the first Oddity Slayer's point of view, and he's able to grab onto everyone who's maybe felt similar feelings to the different characters within the cast, and able to kind of apply this to how he needs to go forward and best address someone.
Yeah, it immediately, like, it just elicits him holding back Ononoki last episode. I know that you were, like, in the intro, you were pointing out the fact that, Ononoki was holding him back to let it happen, but the moment in time that things ramped up, and then Araragi held Ononoki back, that's what image comes to mind when I'm thinking about Araragi and Hanakawa now at the end of Tsubasa Tiger, which is a fascinating thought to have. And, the idea that Araragi has that faith and trust in Hanakawa and Senjigahara after the phone call, but just in general, and what kind of person he would be, but what they're capable of, also led to a moment that I need to get your interpretation of, whether it's as funny as, like, the whole, like, delete my browser history shit, or if it has a little bit more legs and there could be something deeper in it. And when Guyan hears that from Araragi, she responds with, one day I would like to trust others enough to give them my cell phone. And coming from
that says
Guyan,
a lot about her, actually.
It could just be like, oh, I don't want anybody to read my text messages, like, one-dimensionally. But in terms of what Guyan's capable of, what she knows, the fact that she is a pillar of information that everybody bounces off of, like, that is a crazy line just dropped, like, out of nowhere from Guyan.
I see it as a control freak line.
Yeah.
I see it as the idea of how much she uses people as pawns more so than what they might view themselves as, like, they have full autonomy. She probably doesn't really view them as that, and she probably views them as, like, she's setting the course of certain aspects of their life. In the same way that kind of Shinobu and Araragi get this kind of rude awakening of a lot of the things that have happened in your lives, especially in this town, have been due to the first Oddity Slayer being here at the Polar Snake Shrine. And so I take it as an idea of, like, I would like to trust others enough to give them my cell phone, is I would like to trust others enough to be able to trust them to make their own choices, and it'll end up okay. But she still feels like she needs to control things in order to have maybe the best outcome.
Yeah. Damn.
I'm glad that you kind of brought up originally a couple minutes ago the kind of way that we've watched this show. And obviously we brought up a lot of examples of how even you brought up Bakemonogatari, and obviously Kizumonogatari can apply here. Literally everything can apply here. And obviously Monogatari second season is one of those biggest things. And then obviously at the very end of the episode we get Tsukimonogatari. And so it's like we're really getting a really amazing look start to finish of Owarimonogatari and where it fits each kind of section of Owarimonogatari into the timeline of what we've already watched.
Yeah.
And even though Owarimonogatari is kind of spanning a certain time period, we already have the things that fill those cracks. Like, we know what gets Araragi to the place where he's on a bed talking to Ogi, and then why he would be opening a door and finding Ononoki within his own household, and why they would have lines like, your master has gone missing, things of that nature, and wanting to go to the Polar Snake Shrine. We have already, because of Tsukimonogatari, an idea why that is happening here at the end of the episode. And that is where I'm being shown that Owarimonogatari, at least for now, that's where we're ending off of,
because
it's the very end of Tsukimonogatari in terms of timeline.
I could be 100% wrong, because like at the end of Tadatsuru, at the end of his being, right, we have the idea of Yozuru meeting up with us there, obviously can't touch the ground, but the idea of her missing, like, is that just like after the interaction that we've seen and Ononoki back at Aragi's house, they haven't reconvened with her, or is there something more to it, or is there something that I'm just forgetting, you know?
Right, like exactly, like we know that she had to go a different way about getting to the Polar Snake Shrine and wasn't going to go about it the same way that Ononoki and Araragi were, but have we really not had much interaction with her at all since that point in time? And since we haven't had much interaction with her since that point in time, I'm guessing we're getting the idea she's just been missing.
Yeah, I
we
mean,
literally haven't had any interaction.
It could, like, I could imagine very clearly that the next thing that would be in line for Monogatari would be picking up where we left off this episode, but at the same time, it's Monogatari. We could go absolutely anywhere, dude.
I love what you're bringing up, because what you're bringing up is, like, you're right. We have no exact idea of what we're really going to be getting into. Because when we started Owarimonogatari, did either of us think we were going to be getting a character that we never ever met, and that being Oikura, which we both thought of during the very ending of this episode?
In terms of happiness.
Like, yeah, because happiness.
I want, like, what are your feelings? Because I've also, like, I'm trying to pull up my, at the moment, in like one of my 7 Monogatari notebooks, like chronological timeline, to think of like, oh, where else could we go if we wanted to go back? Mm-hmm. But since we're bringing it up, I'd love to go there. In terms of Araragi's happiness and how we're like defining it and talking about it this episode, there were a lot of lines that I have one written down. I'm sure you have 1 or 2 that we can spit off really quick. But then after we do that, I want to go somewhere else with it. So do you have any, like...
I have one for sure.
Okay.
Are you one of those people who thinks wallowing in unhappiness and bad luck is the same as toughing it out? That's a line I wrote down from that moment.
It's so good. Like, and like, it's so important to have somebody like Ononoki in your life. And I don't necessarily, I'm not saying that I do, because I think that it's hard to have people like Ononoki in your life, because knowing somebody that intimately, but also speaking to them in the way that you are, it takes careful balance of care and love to know when to say a hard thing like that in order to know that the person that you're talking to responds in the correct way. And because of their interactions and their relationship specifically, Ononoki and Aragi's dynamic makes Ononoki the perfect person, I think, to be able to say this to Aragi, specifically based off of her origin in this story. But mine is a lot smaller. But languishing in unhappiness is simply negligence. Like, that fucked me quite a bit, man. I alluded to it in the outro, but just, I've been going through, stuff with bipolar disorder for my entire life, but, specifically since, the last X amount of months, I have been fine. But fine is, I think, the best way to describe it. And then things went downhill because bipolar episodes happen. That's whatever. It happens. But when you're fine with something like bipolar disorder, like, yes, I'm moving and I'm able to get things done. But I think that the line of languishing in unhappiness is simply negligence is something to really pinpoint and point out, because it's back to another message that we're getting from Senjigahara in this episode. It's not working at yourself to make yourself be that special person. It's not really pulling out the full potential or full, idea of what that happiness internally can be. And in terms of happiness, in terms of Araragi and how he's talking about not being happy, what's your perspective of Araragi's happiness right now? Like, it almost seems like he's putting off the idea of it because of the longevity of what his life could be with Shinobu. But at the same time, especially like with everything that happens with Oikura and seeing what happens with Kanbaru like later on, like it's almost hard to believe on one hand that Araragi isn't happy, but everybody can have varying degrees of happiness,
Or what they view happiness really would be. Like, what do they view as that actual happy ending? And whether or not, the idea of like, oh, you might be fine or you might be all right, but is that what your ideal image of like happiness is? I think about Ononoki's line of like the idea of shooting for a happy ending. Like even if he is not currently viewing that things are happy, we also have Araragi have lines of dialogue at the end of this episode that allude to the fact that he is at least aware that in 400 years he might view things differently about his own happiness. But Ononoki is still kind of putting that idea forward of like, well, how about like shooting for a happy ending? How about like hoping for that ideal to actually come to pass?
And don't wait for it. You know, like take that as your moment to shoot for the happy ending. Like right then, like the second that you have that thought, shoot for the happy ending. And again, I apologize for bringing my own self into this, but I you know, day by day it feels like things are getting better, but I'm going about things the correct way, you know, and I'm seeing a psychiatrist and I'm on proper medication and things are going well, and I'm not at all there yet, but I would like to think that at the moment within my own, you know, journey, I'm shooting for a happy ending, and that I, of course, thank you, Monogatari.
Thank you, Monogatari. Something else that you had brought up recently in this conversation was the idea of being special in the eyes of someone else, and that idea of trying to continue to be better, and how that can really go with the shoot for a happy ending, because you're continuing to hope for the ideal, for the better, but in fact wanting to be that for yourself and for other people. Be special in the eyes of someone else, and someone else is probably going to choose you. I mean, wouldn't that be the kind of ultimate goal, is to be proud of yourself and feel like you're deserving of the people in your life that you love choosing you. So just continuing going forward, trying to be better, trying to look toward your life as if it is positive, or if it's not super positive, at least try to strive to get closer to your positive, closer to feeling like you're deserving of that positive. And in that same line of thinking, that can be challenging, because what we have within this episode is just the idea of burdens, things you might feel, and I feel like you can probably understand this, the idea of things you might feel you are burdening your loved ones with. Araragi obviously has that with what his relationship with Shinobu is. Are he or Shinobu ever really going to be able to have a path of true happiness, or feeling like what their relationship and dynamic is like isn't in fact maybe a burden to other people or even each other? You're just gonna have to keep fighting with that.
I wonder, I don't know. I should take it as is because it's Araragi saying it, but it makes me, I'm like, huh, interesting. I almost didn't expect to hear that from Araragi, but it led to a very powerful moment, and I appreciate that.
Agreed.
Senjigahara's phone call was so good, man. I was so happy to see Senjigahara. I miss her so much, but what she's able to offer Araragi is always incredible.
I think I like it because I know what their communication was like during Tsubasa Tiger, and kind of how limited it really was, but with some text messages of him making sure to have some sort of contact with her to let her know what was going on. And so to know that actually during that time where she is taking a lot of kind of care and being the one to be really there for Hanakawa, they're still able to be in contact with each other as in a relationship and be helpful to each other. And I'm sure that it kind of reinvigorated both of them and gave them some sort of strength, getting to just at least hear each other's voices at least and say, I love you. Obviously, there was more to their conversation than just getting to do that. And that's why I'm saying at least they even got to do that.
So what do you think of the duel? I have a couple of thoughts. I in a couple of different directions too. Firstly, like, I loved that, Seshiro had the like concept or idea of like wanting to fight on equal terms, you know, and like have no, you know, second doubt in your mind about what the outcome of this fight may be. And in doing so, Guyan offers the solution that she does that is obvious enough to call out, like, oh, okay, so we're trying to avoid Aragi's death. Like, that is the circumstance, that's the result in the circumstance that we're setting up here. And later in the episode, again, we get an idea of Guyan being like, I prefer you not to die, Araragi. And I think that that's interesting because in terms of our earlier conversation of Ogi potentially sowing, like, doubt in terms of, like, Aragi's perception of Guyan and what she's going on, like, I don't know. I trust Guyan still within that moment, but obviously it could go
You gotta
either
think
way.
about his relationship with Shinobu. If Araragi were to die here in this moment, if Shinobu in fact does pick Araragi and Araragi is the person,
That's a
which
great
she
point.
shows at the end of the episode how she feels about him in kind of contrast to how she feels about the first Oddity Slayer, Guyan would of course want Araragi to survive
Yeah.
here.
But it also led to like such an Araragi moment in a duel. Like, he read between the exact rules that were given to him by Guyan in terms of what a hit was and what constitutes a hit, and the fact that it wasn't necessarily a hit with the sword, you know? And the idea of using the talisman of Oshino was something that I completely didn't fucking expect, but it led to such a crazy moment.
Right?
Yeah.
Because that really is an attack. Like, when we first see him and he just kind of taps, I'm not thinking he grabbed a meme talisman at all. I'm thinking, oh, he just found the loophole, and that is that it's just whoever was able to touch the other person first. And when you have a character grandly jumping in the air, swinging out a sword, there's definitely some time in there probably for Aragi to have done what he did.
I thought we were going to see, like, Aragi, like, hit across the chest, blood spurting out or something for a second. I was terrified. But the idea that Shishiro had his own, you know, strategy to this in terms of dropping the armor to give him that advantage, I love that that's the case, because in his own way, Aragi did the same exact
It's like
thing.
dropping your weights off right before a battle.
Yeah.
Like, we've had characters in different shows that have done a similar sort of, like, you approach a duel and then you're kind of appearing to be a certain way, and then you're able to kind of within that duel drop off weights and then show that you're maybe more agile or you're coming in a different form. When the first Oddity Slayer shows up to this duel in the suit of armor, I was like, why are we not seeing him as the kind of human-esque version of him that we've now been introduced to, and possibly even older because he's had more time, because we were waiting until tonight in order to do the duel. And then in fact, yes, we do get to see that. I think one of the reasons we get to see that, other than, well, why wouldn't you bring the human form back and age it up a little bit, especially if you're having Shinobu be able to kind of have that interaction with it, with him as he's dying, is also so that the armor is off of his body and somewhere else.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
His design is so fucking cool, man. It's I don't imagine we're going to ever see him again, but
It was supposed to be successful.
Yeah, his design's so great. I think it's up there with Episode in terms, like, they like are on a similar level for me.
If we ever could meet again, let us meet again.
Let us meet again.
What the sort of idea? Normally when you'd have people talking about meeting again with someone else, there would be the idea or the intention that you in fact do want to meet this person again. But it's more like obligatory.
Mhm.
It's more like a responsibility. Like, I would owe you this, you would owe me that. It is part of the burden, right? That if we were ever to be able to meet again, we in fact should meet again. Like, this is still a part of my business or my duty as Araragi or Shinobu.
Did any part of you imagine that Shinobu would have shown up earlier than she did?
Yes.
Yeah?
There was a part of me that thought that because of Araragi hearing from Guyan, you know, who are you gonna choose? Hanakawa, Senjugahara, Shinobu? And just him learning what was happening with Hanakawa. In that moment, I was trying to figure out, okay, timeline-wise, we're right here in the cusp of what's the climax, even Guyan used that word, of what was happening with Hanakawa. And I know that Araragi shows up at the end there. And I'm like, there's no way that Shinobu takes his place in this duel right now.
Aragi just takes Heartspan and runs? Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm trying to figure out, okay,
Yeah.
how do we lace up with what's actually happening at the end of Tsubasa Tiger, at the end of what's going on with Hanakawa, with now what we're getting in this, in Owarimonogatari. So I was thinking there was a possibility that Shinobu was going to show up, also because of her conversation with Kanbaru. I know that Araragi leaves his conversation with Kanbaru with the do-it-yourself idea that he wants to be the one that kind of takes care of this, but we know that Shinobu left this with ideas and feelings of how she should go about interacting with the first Oddity Slayer as well, which she in fact does employ probably a bit of, like, what she feels like she got out of that conversation. And sure, she might not do everything and anything that Kanbaru would do because they're different. She was informed by that conversation with Kanbaru and is able to make a choice for herself and actually meet with him.
Because there were several different iterations of what could happen and how people could respond that Kanbaru agreed with. And Shinobu, in her own way, grabbed that and showed up when she did, but to say that there's somebody who's more important to me than you now.
And Kanbaru was like, I don't care who it is you pick at the end of the day, as long as you say that you've picked one. There was a moment in time in this episode where I didn't want Kanbaru to run away from Gaian. Obviously, I know that she had places to be and she needed to be useful to Araragi, and she has proven to be incredibly useful, and Gaian was completely right that she needed to be appreciated and she could be tasked with things. But there was a moment in time in this episode, and I still kind of feel it, where I'm like, on screen, I want more interaction of Kanbaru and Gaian.
Yeah, I mean, it was so good, though. I like the idea of Araragi this whole time, like, learning and being able to see firsthand what Kanbaru is capable of, and the idea of being like, I need my specialist, having those 30 minutes of training and lending of a shoe, and then being able to send her off in terms of, her physicality, she can get there, but also, she's trustworthy, you know?
And she has really proven that within what we've seen of her.
Alright, well, that's all I have for this episode of Owarimonogatari.
And we have no clue what we might be getting into next. Could maybe theorize that we know where in the timeline it could possibly be, which is possibly after Tsukimonogatari, but other than that, I have no clue. Maybe even after Hanamonogatari.
Or right here after this episode of Owarimonogatari.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Alright, well, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. We hope to see you next time.